All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Dodd, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as you can see that we are all in attendance except for Mr. Umbihan. And thus I will be acting president for this meeting. Mr. Board, has public notice been given?
Yes, it has. We're working off the revised agenda.
Thank you. And one note, the agenda, we're going to be switching the action items A and B. So we're actually going to adopt the 23-24 budget prior to amending the resolution to vote for the tax levy. And Mr. Bosworth, you present for the information for DPI for the budget.
Yeah, some things to point out. Some of these will be repeats, some of these will be new. Line 3 and line 9. So line 3 is indicating what our fund balance begins at. Line 9 is indicating what it ends at. Again, the reason that fund balance starts high is because of claimed ESSER monies from the last couple of school years. And this year we have a plan to spend those monies down to the tune of about 1.8 million for one-time expenditures, and about 600,000 of that is in salaries. Next thing I'll point out is look at lines 12 and line 34. Since you saw this document last, the state is constantly updating the aid that schools are going to bring as some schools find errors or some schools submit their data. That changes, fluctuates a lot. So since the information was first published towards the middle of the month, these numbers have changed slightly. So the number on line 34, the aid that we would get from the state has decreased, which would mean that the number on line 12 would increase slightly to make sure that our Fund 10 stays at the level that we're allowed to use. Second thing I would, maybe the third thing I would point out, so that, again, this is all Fund 10 stuff. I think, as I said last time, this is teachers, buses, footballs, things like that we spend out of Fund 10. If you go to the second page, the next yellow box there, Funds 21, 23, 39, I think it said before those are for gifts. Those are also student activity accounts. So that's, some of you may have been wondering, do we get that much in gifts every year? We do get a lot of gifts, not that much. A lot of that money is in student activity accounts. The next function box below that in yellow is Fund 27. The things I would point out here, first of all, if you look at line 141 and line 165, those numbers are the same. And so by definition, special ed cannot carry a fund balance from year to year. It has to essentially wash out. And then I would refer you back to line 99. That is the projected amount from Fund 10 we're going to need to use to transfer in to make sure that our special education does balance out to be neutral at the end of the school year. The next function area to look at is debt service. Those are Funds 38 and 39. This is the main reason we've been using a mill rate of 912 the last 3 years now consistently, is to defease debt and pay off debt that we have. So that's specifically Fund 39. On the last page, again, we do have a Fund 46. The point of 46 is it allows school districts to, if they're able to, levy money, or excuse me, essentially save money out of Fund 10 from year to year in the hopes that they could use that for capital improvement in the future. Unfortunately, for a school with declining enrollment or a lot of open enrollment out, it would be hard for us to generate a lot of excess out of Fund 10 on a yearly basis to build that up. Some schools that have expanding enrollments would find that easier than a school district like we would. But we have it started regardless in the future if we want to use that. Food Service Fund, Fund 50. Food service is allowed to carry a balance. As you can see, we'll begin the year with about $231,000 in our food service account. We're hoping to operate and be neutral, and that's why you have our revenues and expenses projected to be the same. Community Service Fund, Fund 80. We're levying $120,000 this year. This is an increase from years past. And last week we talked about how the majority of that money will be used for our community resource officer, and then the remainder, I think was 32. 88 to the CRO, about 32,000 will be used to repair and maintain the Safe Routes to School trail. And then finally, Funds 91, 93, 99. These are things like our cooperative program with Ithaca. Cross-country program belongs in Fund 90 because it's a joint venture between two schools. And also this is where we would, you may have heard us talk about our uniform account. So when organizations, teams run like a tournament maybe, for example, this is where we would deposit the money that we get from other schools. It's where we would pay the money out to pay for fees or maintenance staff, referees, and the remainder, if it's a positive, builds up, and this is where our athletic teams use that surplus to purchase uniforms from. So that would be the conclusion of the information on the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bosworth. Are there any questions with regards to the budget?
Just going to add a couple of just brief things. The document that the board is looking at, they're used to seeing what we call a local budget document that breaks it down into categories that we typically would see. Every school district in the state has to adopt their budget in the same format. And this is what's called the DPI format. So it's the same information, but it is relayed out a little differently, broken out a little differently, so DPI can track it, and all school districts are reporting it the exact same way. After the board approves the budget, then any transfers that happen between line items, essentially. So for instance, lines 62 and 63 on page 2. 62 is 120000 regular curriculum, 63 is 130000 vocational curriculum. If the school district needs to transfer budget money from vocational, tech ed, vocational curriculum to regular curriculum, that transfer would have to come to the board because we're transferring it out of a DPI line item. So just to kind of bring it full circle, because throughout the course of the year, especially with grants, you will see budget transfers come to the board, and it's because it's moving money from one line item to another line item in this document right here. And every school district in the state is in the process of approving their DPI format. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'd like to get a motion to adopt the 2023-2024 budget.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Troxel?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. the amend the resolution to the tax for the operation of Richland School District for 2023-2024. Mr. Board?
Yeah, so at the annual meeting, which we just recently had, although school districts around the state could have it anytime from the third Monday in July all the way up through, the time when they adopt the budget and set the tax levy. The board heard from Mr. Bosworth and had a budget hearing where the public was allowed to weigh in on that budget and the tax levy. This is the night that the board would actually set that tax levy based on the budget that you just approved. And so the tax levy summary is in board docs, for those of you who don't have it handy. Very similar to what we showed at the annual meeting. There are a couple of general changes just from some of the items that Mr. Bosworth mentioned in change of equalization aid. But we'd be looking at a general fund levy of just over 5.7 million. Our total levy in the revenue limit is about 6.4, but we have to pay some debt out of that, which leaves us with 5.7 million. And then we have 198,000 in referendum debt that we're obligated to pay, that's interest only. And then we've been taking the stance that we're going to defease money prepaid debt to keep that mill rate at $9.12. That will allow us to defease just over $2.9 million in prepaid debt. So we'll have cut our Fund 39 debt from a little over $8 million down to about $4 million before we were scheduled to make 1 penny payment on our principal. Okay, so that's what we've been trying to do here. The total equalized property value in our district is just over $1 trillion, and so that would keep our tax rate at $9.12 for the rate. And again, I would remind the board that we are not keeping our tax dollar amount the same, we are keeping our tax rate the same. And so if property owners have an increase in property value due to appreciation and value, they will pay more property taxes on their property tax bill in December. But the rate on the dollar is the same, and that's $9.12 per thousand. Mr. Bosworth, anything else to add with that?
No.
Are there any questions from the board? So I move to amend the resolution to vote a tax for the operation of the Richland School District for the 2023-2024 in the amount of $9,710,162, of which $751,854 is for debt within the revenue limit. $3,110,693 is for debt outside of the revenue limit, and $120,000 is for community service expenses. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Downa?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Action item number, letter C, approval of 2023-2024 snowplow bids.
So prior to tonight's meeting, the Buildings, Property, and Transportation Committee met, and they opened and examined and analyzed any snow plowing bids that they had, and will be looking at making a recommendation. So I'll turn it over to our Buildings, Property, Transportation Chair, Mr. Huntimer, for the outcome of that meeting.
Are the dollar amounts needing to be stated?
They're public record, you certainly
Okay.
can if it's easier.
So last year, Advanced Contracting Solutions LLC of Richland Center is who did our parking lots. This year, that is the same and only individual company who bid. Last year's trace amount up to 3 inches, the cost went down $25 from $625 to $600. The 3.1 inches to 6 inch rate went from $825 last year down to $700 this year. 6.1 inches to 9 inch rate went from $1,025 down to $800. And the over 9 inch snowfall rate went from $1,225 down to $1,000. Salting has gone down $50 at the high school from $175 down to $125. The intermediate school has decreased from $150 down to $100.
And the primary school was 150, it is now 75, but I would add that we have also now added the partner school at 75 as well. And so across the board, a significant decrease in the bid, and it was recommended unanimously from the Properties Committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the 2023-24 snowplow bid.
I'll make it.
Motion made by Mr. Hunter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Troxel. Any further discussion? Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. I move into closed session pursuant to statutes 19.851C and/or F as appropriate to consider employment, promotion, and compensation of employees for purposes of discussing individual employee hiring and compensation, and Wisconsin statutes 19.851F and Wisconsin statutes 118.125 to discuss student open enrollment applications and student disciplinary information. The board may take action on these items in closed session if necessary and appropriate. At the conclusion of the closed session, the board will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Dickman. Any discussion? Ms. Dickman?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you very much.